It's starting. I'm seeing the curtains come down. Don't resist. Resist. Fight. What might this look like?
Sharing information from an organizational perspective that us as directors or program directors may garner from, our leadership team meetings or whatever. So to be able to bring that back in a proactive manner to share, with our team members when appropriate, because then they kind of get a sense of what else is happening, What are the strategies? What else is happening over in Joanne's, programs that, may affect my team in terms of development, or the new things that are happening over in the bistro or whatnot,
Yeah. I think that's very helpful, and we're talking about kind of a global perspective there, to some extent of keeping them attuned to what's happening organizationally so they see their role and their purpose. Let me get to an even smaller scale. Because sometimes we think we have to have these big things, but sometimes it might be as simple as, hey, what are some of the challenges and things that you're dealing with? Well, I find out from one of the people that reports to me that it's just hard to create these reports because they just hate this piece of software they're using. I inquire a little bit more and I find out it's an old piece of software you're using. Not only that, but that computer is like 1997. Okay?
Sounds like you work at Benedict.
All right, for the sake of this argument, let's say that computer looks like it's from 1987.
Sounds like you work at Benedict.
We'll just change the detail there. All right. So now I find out that this individual, I'm holding them accountable for a result, but they're having a very hard time delivering that result because of something that's kind of in their way. Now, whether or not I can actually affect that, it's good for me to know that, because I can either recalibrate my level of expectation, knowing what's hampering their ability to get that done, or I can say, you know what? Look, money's tight. It's always tight. Let me see if I can't find a way to either possibly get a donated computer or see if we might have a higher version of that around. Would that be helpful to you if you were able to have a slightly newer piece of software and hardware? Yeah, that'd be great. It's like, okay, let me go ahead and see what I can do on that. A couple days later, just checking in. Hey, just want to let you know. Sorry, puts hand on his phone. Just really quick, just want to let you know. It looks like there might be something we can be able to do. The conversation's still going on, but I'll get back to you. Was that a report right there?
Right.
It was, wasn't it? In other words, a report is sending a signal that that whole thing that we went through where I was finding out your triangles and my meat to give with you about what I'm going to do, it was real. It wasn't just an exercise to make us feel good about something. It's me reinforcing that this is real and I'm actually making an effort to it. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. Sarah, I think your point, though, as far as letting people know just these overall things, you're sending a signal there, too. You're saying, you know what, we respect you so much that we don't see you as subservient, lower-level peons. You're part of this great team, and we want you to feel like you're completely aware of what's happening. So there's a lot of things that can come from that. The wonderful thing about that is that positive ripple effect that can happen when you begin to empower somebody. When somebody begins to feel like you walk into their office and say something like that or pass that along, it's like, wow, she actually just stopped and she said, I mean, that sends a strong signal, doesn't it? Makes me want to perform a little bit more. Although that wasn't your purpose, because that would be an inward mindset. Good.
I think transparency is important too. This is what I'm asking you to do, and this is the reason why, and this is where we hope to accomplish by doing it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, that's reporting them, but they're also knowing what's expected of them.
Yeah, the why of the what, and kind of the person behind it, and then our progress in covering that ground. You're absolutely right. And again, if we were to spend time, and there's so many different workshops. This is kind of the foundational. This is Arbiter 101 kind of. If you think about it, we've got leading through an outward mindset. That's a whole separate thing, specifically set up for leaders. And you drill down deeper into some of these. They've got conflict resolution pieces and a lot of these other ones that are going on, ongoing executive coaching things. But one of them is leading through an outward mindset, where you really drill down in that particular moment. You really begin to have the leader question or really look deeply at how am I reporting to my direct reports. And if you're anything like me, that's usually a lot of quiet sitting and thinking. Because in order to report on doing something for them, you first have to have learned what they need you to do, and then actually made a commitment to do something. In other words, you actually have to see them as a person that you're giving to, not just getting from. Pay your money, give us the labor, get your job done, and we move on. But the meat to give changes things, okay? All right, let's go on. Now, what might this look like? And this is the most obvious one to the extent that we're accustomed to reporting to a manager. But with an outward mindset perspective, how might a report to a manager change if we're an outward mindset organization?
Talking to them about what their objectives are for their job, so we can help them get to that.
Yeah, first off, it's important that we have an understanding of those outside triangles, right? So really understanding, trying to see the organization through a manager's eyes to the best of our ability is always beneficial. And if you're really trying to improve the organization, the more global of a perspective of your job, the better. So sometimes it's not even that you're trying to get into your manager, you're trying to get a global perspective on where your role fits into this larger scheme of things. And naturally what ends up happening is you see these other pressures and constraints. Now if the manager at the very same time is trying to help you understand the power of your role within the larger context and help you see these other people around you and the way it works, everything, all this stuff blends together. It's a wonderful thing. But at this point, as I'm reporting to my manager, and not that I'm suggesting to make these reports bigger or more complicated, but if I'm really measuring my success within the organization, am I solely focused on my inside triangles? Am I simply being assessed on whether or not I'm doing my job description? Or am I also beginning to look at myself as somebody that should be assessed, even if I'm only doing it to myself, on my impact on others? On whether or not I'm helping to increase or decrease efficiency, collaboration, and accountability and all these other elements. On how I'm dealing with my direct reports, on how I'm dealing with my peers, okay? Now again, this doesn't have to necessarily be formalized, although I would suggest that the best reviews that take place take all of these things into account. Because if I am sitting there as a manager, and many of you are in direct reports, and I am solely focusing the review on whether or not they're completing their job description and assessing their contributions purely based on that, am I really getting a full scope of the potential impact that that individual could have on the organization? No, I haven't. No. I've kind of seen that a number of different times, right? And so you begin to see this outside, inside out in the reporting side of things. You can see a lot of things changing. You can begin to become more contextually and situationally aware. And that's all. We're just trying to think of ways that you can begin reporting to these different groups. And a lot of these aren't necessarily talking about increasing formality in forms and formal reports and everything else, but beginning to feel accountable. And if you're truly accountable, you're reporting on how you're doing. That's all. Okay? All right. We kind of just went through this. We're not going to do this part. What we're going to do now is take a break. Okay? All right, now this is what we're going to do. 15-minute break. When you come back, this is the last section. So you're going to bring back crazy amounts of energy. I brought in 4 Red Bulls for each of you. I want you to consume them all. Just hang in there for this last section. We're going to bring it all together. We've got a couple of videos that we're going to watch. But let's go ahead and let's come back at 2:40. So that's about 13 or 14 minutes, okay? So 2:40. Does that work?
Yeah.
All right.